would like to say
Hey,
hello.
Roberta! Hello.
No, it's totally fine.
I bet Roberta would be interesting to you.
Okay.
Cool,
Hey.
let's
She got
start video. Oh, sorry, I clicked out of that.
No, hey, are you there? Hey, hi Roberta.
Hi.
So Roberta and I know each other from a long while back, and actually you look exactly the same. Not fair. This is from about 1997. Anyway, lovely. I'm glad you look the same. Roberta, I'll just show you the people in the room. There we are. Whoops, there we are.
Hi.
And we've got two visitors from Bard who are interested in the writing center compared to American writing centers. So that might be a question at some point. So Roberta's got good experience both places. But I'll hand, and now you've got this wonderful award-winning film, and hopefully you come to South Africa sometime soon.
Yes.
Right.
So I'm going to just mute so that there's no like interference.
All right. So should I just tell her that she can go?
Okay.
But now I can't hear you anymore.
There we are. All right. So we'll start the session now, if that's okay. And we've got about an hour-ish or something. All right.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay. So I'll hand over to you. It's lovely to see you.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Right. We go.
Sorry, do you mind if we record, or do you have the ability to record
Sure.
this?
Do you want me to record?
Yes, please.
All right, I'll record, and then I'll send you the link.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Brilliant. Good. All right. Well, hi everybody. So I'm seeing myself. Yes, thank you. I'm like way more interested in seeing everybody else. So I got to be a writing consultant in the center when it first opened, I think. And so one thing that I would say is really different about writing centers, about your writing center and about my experience of writing centers in both Portland, where I live, Portland State University is where I teach, and University of Manitoba in Canada is where I did my doctorate. Yours is more fun. So your writing center is generating cultural contributors. You're not just trying to write for your papers for your classes, and that's important, writing for your papers for your classes, but connecting with your voice and sharing, and doing that in community. That's how I think of the work you all are doing at Wits in your writing center, and it's pretty extraordinary. So my name is Roberta Suzette Hunt, and I'm a professor of, I'm in the School of Social Work, and I work on maternal health. Black maternal health is what I research right now. And the movie that I'm going to show you, it's a 20-minute short film that came from my dissertation. I did my dissertation on Black women in construction. So I was focused on workforce equity, and really the idea being, construction careers, women make up 3% of the construction workforce in the US, women of color in total, all of us. So that's Black, Indigenous, Latino, and Asian. We make up 1% of that population. And white women making up the other 2%. And I think about, what does it mean to work in this industry? How do people stay in the industry? The biggest reason that people leave is discrimination. So it's, the tools are one hurdle. Your colleagues and the hostility of your colleagues is another. And often it's the colleagues that are worse and harder than being an iron worker. But what I found as a Black woman academic is I was researching people who were struggling in their careers, and I finished my dissertation and was struggling to do research, to continue my research. And I thought, well, one way to, there's doing the research, and then the people that I interviewed, they said, we want you to make things different. And so I thought, well, how do I tell their story? And so I worked with a playwright, Bonnie Ratner, and we turned my dissertation into a theater piece. We turned it into a play called My Walk Has Never Been Average, which was basically taking the narratives and creating characters and portraying elements of the research in as theater. And then I connected with a carpenter friend, Don Jones Redstone, who is a filmmaker. And she said, why don't we make a short film? It'll be a mix of your research and my experience as a Latina carpenter. And we will we'll make a short film. Let's make a movie. And so that is Sista and the Brotherhood. So I'm gonna show the film, and people often talk about it as a documentary. It's not a documentary. It is a short film. It is a fictional film. However, it is highly informed by people's lived experiences. And what happens when people watch it, thousands of people around the world have watched it, is they say, if they are in construction as women, and some men of color, when they watch it, they say, oh, I know that experience. And but they say, all of that has happened to me. It didn't all happen on the same day, but it's all happened. So I'll start the film, and there is some profanity. It's construction, yeah. So let me share, and we should have transcripts.
This is your work too. Get on out there and show them boys what's what.
I need this job. I can do the work.
Yeah, it's back to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So we can really just do Q&A, like what interests you about the project, or about the subject matter, or whatever you want to talk about.
We have lights on in here, is that
Turn on all the lights.
Sorry, you have to speak louder, remembering that I'm on the other side of the world.
Right.
One thing that I learned from doing this project, so the issue of women in construction has not changed. There's been a lot of advocacy. We know what the problems are. We know. It's not changed. In fact, with the Trump era, and really just kind of rising angst and repression of difference, the opposition to women in construction is both increasing, while the need for women and people of color to be at all levels of construction is also increasing. But what this project did was it elevated the issue and moved people emotionally versus intellectually, which did reach a wider audience. And so, when we think about social change work, there's the policy piece, there's the cultural piece, the kind of changing of hearts and minds. And this work is really more at the cultural level. And it's the culture of construction that needs to change. Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you. I see you.
Hi, great. Thank you. This is fantastic. Thanks for being here. So I'm from the East Coast. I grew up in an elevator constructor family, and so my brother and my dad are elevator constructors, and I'm very familiar with that sort of blue collar existence. And I wonder about your research in particular, two things, either of them you could shrug at, I would totally understand. The first is, the film itself has these sort of symbolic references to union culture without ever explicitly saying so. Journeyman is a term of art within American labor union politics and things like that. I wonder if in your research, the role of the union as a repressive force against cultural change ever emerges, or if it's sort of a parallel force, like it's not sort of intersecting on those levels. And second, given what happened sort of towards the end of the Trump administration about, and even in the 70s, locusts of female-driven labor unions, particularly nurses unions, service workers unions, and teachers unions. And I wonder if those unions are seen in the same way as being forces that sort of repress change, cultural change, or if they exist on a different sort of spectrum. If either of these questions are too niche or sort of not what you're thinking of in your dissertation, that's totally, that's my experience of growing up the son of a laborer, union laborer. So let me know what you're sort of thinking, what your thoughts are, or what your research has led you to.
So for women and for people of color, there's union and non-union options. For long-term careers, people tend to last longer working within the union. However, and so you see more women working in unions, and at the same time, unions have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And I think unions in general, whether you are female driven or male driven, tend to operate in a very hierarchical way. And hierarchy can also silence voice and difference. And so, I think there are some unions that have done better in bringing in more women and people of color. And I bring that up because as a Black woman, if we're not addressing sexism, I'm not in the room. If we're not addressing racism, I'm not in the room. And but what I would also say is they haven't gone far enough at all, and that uh, within the construction industry, within the piece, you see there's this kind of reference to you can't have our job, right? And that is something that women that I interviewed said a lot, that they heard people say to them, you're just here to fill a quota. You're just here um, uh, because somebody let you be here. You don't belong here. And and they talked about ways that people tried to sabotage their work, ways that they would work on big jobs. Like that job was the Selwood Bridge. That's a big bridge in my community, and there was a community benefits agreement on that bridge to say that a certain number of women, a certain number of people of color, a certain number of apprentices um, would be on that job. And what people said was, if that agreement wasn't on that job, we wouldn't be on that job. But we tend to be the first hired, first fired. And if you're not tracking what we're doing, then we are just filling a quota, not because that's what we want to do, but because that's all that we're being allowed to do. Um, so I don't know if I'm fully answering your question. The women that I interviewed had been in the trades for 6 to 30 years, and I was really interested in like how do people stay, because we know what pushes them out, but I'm interested in money. I'm interested in pensions. I'm interested in um, long-term careers where people can buy a house if they want, where they can eat consistently, where they can watch a future for their children, for themselves. Um, and I see the trades as a pathway for that, but I also see that it's not easy at all to um, to make it to that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your question.
I have a quick question about your research. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
About your research process for your dissertation?
Yeah.
Why did you choose, what made you choose construction workers? And then 2, how did you find / decide who to interview?
So my doctorate is in peace and conflict studies, and I feel like address the conflict that's directly in front of you. And uh I was my school was in Canada, and that's where I was going to school, but I had a house in Portland, and so I was going between Portland and Canada. Um and I had a season where I was living in Portland, and I needed a job. While you're doing your doctorate, life happens, including breakups, and so I needed to get myself out of my relationship with my partner at the time. And so I got a job working for Oregon tradeswomen, helping women get into construction. And all of a sudden, I'm wearing a hard hat and standing on construction sites telling women why they should think about becoming a laborer or a cement mason. And I am not very good at construction. I'm very good at demolition, but I'm not good at power tools. I am actually averse to power tools and big vehicles. But here I am out here with these folks that were just capturing my heart, and and but I kept looking around, thinking, okay, well, where are the people that stay, and I would meet some older white women, and I would meet a handful. Like literally, I could tell you their names of women of color, and you know, so I thought about that, and I thought, you know, I'm trying to get people in, but it's like a leaky sieve. If all you're doing is getting people in, and then they wash out. So I was interested in how people stayed, and then and people would just start telling me stories, and so and I love listening to people's stories, and then I started, every time I'd go to a conference, I would ask, you know, I would say like, I just put out calls to different groups saying, tell me your story. You know, Black women who've been in the trades for 6 to 30 years, or more than 6 years was what I said, more than 6 years. Because trades tend to journey out or complete their apprenticeship in 4 to 6 years. And so people that no longer had the benefit of um, being an apprentice and some of the protected status that apprentices have, but we're just trying to make it. And so, you know, when I would go to conferences, Women Build Nations, Electrical Minority Caucus of Electrical Workers, just different things, people would talk to me. So I ended up doing in-depth interviews with about 15 folks. It was phenomenological. So it was like, tell me your story, tell me your life, and this experience. And that's where we got to.
That's
So,
amazing.
and they were from around the country. And I think one of the things that to me was interesting, even though I'm in the Pacific Northwest, the stories are very similar across the country. So whether you're in Alabama or California or Seattle, these are very similar stories. So tell me, like, what were some of the feelings that people had as they watched?
Frustration.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Frustration.
Frustration, for real.
Yeah.
We anger. Yeah. Yeah. With the frustration and the anger, what are you left with, or what are you taking away?
Am I allowed to speak? As hi, hello. What was it you were saying? Go to the front. Hi, hello. By the way, that was a fantastic film. For me personally, there was a sense of familiarity with the character, and I guess some of the frustration and anger stems from a place of knowing that that situation was going to happen. Like there was no big surprise in it. It's just the sadness of knowing that, you know, women are still undermined, and despite all like the consciousness and despite the efforts, it's like there's still these underlying microaggressive behaviors. So it just leaves you in a place of helplessness, and it makes you wonder like how much more struggle and fighting do women in those spaces have to like, you know, do for there to be an actual change. Like can change actually happen? So it leaves you with a sense of like helplessness.
Yeah.
But also a very important educational moment, because construction work is not the first thing that comes to mind when you have these kind of conversations. So it's sort of like a sense of unpeeling and revealing, to see how this sort of like system of hatred sort of works even further. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, I think about so my mother was a TV news anchor. Oh,
I'm sorry. You wanna pass it?
Actually, I'm actually responding to the film and at the same time to. Oh, I was actually responding to how the views are coming by towards the questions you're asking, but looking at the film, when the girl was crying, it seems like actually the other guy is actually, in terms of, how should I put it? He was actually trying to seek the woman for his own needs of sexuality and actually discriminated the woman because she was black. And as she went to the toilet and when she was crying, when she hit the toilet on the side, it was written black bitch, actually,
Yeah.
which shows how she's actually discriminated, being black. And looking at it, you wouldn't say she was actually being discriminated thoroughly because the younger guy actually treated the girl as the weak one.
But when in the time when he needed to be honest, he was not honest.
More like he was afraid of his father. He's trying to prove something to his father. And he didn't want to take responsibility.
At the expense of her.
Yes, at the expense of her, but eventually when you fear somebody, I mean, well, there are many situations that happens in families. As a boy, you're trying to prove yourself to an uncle or something. And eventually when it comes a situation where somebody helps you and your uncle is trying to praise the work and says it's you, you wouldn't tell the truth because you know, if you say it's not you, you know the kind of words, the harsh words are going to come to you. So he actually, I'm saying it as, he actually kept quiet just because to take the credibility of saying, I did something. Instead of trying to throw the girl under the bus. And the movie shows you when favor is on your side, things will go well as they're meant to go well. Things did go well for the girl. Just that the movie gives you this question mark of saying, I want to see their faces when the girl starts to work at a higher position than them. That's what I wanted to actually see from them. Their faces, their reaction. Because you see, when it ends, that guy says, get out of here, bitch. You see? So when he realizes that the girl is being promoted to work at the bridge, and while he's working under the bridge, I just wanted to see those emotions. If there was another episode, I would say another link.
yeah. Yeah, you know, I think one of the things that you really bring up is the kind of the precarity of the relationships, and the challenge of finding real connection on the job. And women would tell me about that every time they stepped onto a job, they knew that they were both very visible and invisible at the same time. And that they were looking for who is someone who is willing to work with them, who's willing to teach them. You know, construction is a collaborative job. Like, these projects get built because people work together, not because people are alone. And yet, one of the ways that people get pushed out is by people refusing to work with them, refusing to train them, refusing to help them when they need help. And no one advances without those things. But a protective factor, what people say as well, is that what's hardest for them is when their boss doesn't see them. So if your boss can see you and really see you for you and what you are contributing, that's a protective factor. Because then that person helps you stay in the game. But if you don't have that, then it's very easy to be picked off. And so we have this moment in the film of, did Red, the superintendent, did he see her? Like, he saw something. And then how far will he go in giving her a chance? But we all know, like, if someone doesn't give us a chance.
Yeah, well, the girl actually did get the chance, isn't it?
So the greatest thing was when after she cried in the toilet, when she decided to come and show what she's capable of.
Yes.
And that is when she was seen.
Yeah.
But I beg to differ because, yes, she was seen there, but she was also seen before the uncle of the boy came. The boss saw her while she was helping the younger star. Because the boss did see her, just that the other one didn't see her. Eventually, she was marked. But you did see it, right? When you noticed.
In a way, but he did not acknowledge that she was doing the right job.
But in a terms of writing, you can take it as if he was just observing. He saw the truth, just observing. If he didn't see the first part, I doubt he would have stood for the girl.
He did not stand for her.
He didn't really chase her away. He gave her a higher position.
So I want to ask you something. So if we were to take a step back and think about research and art and the conversation that you all are having right now, which is far more complex than if I put a paper in front of you about women in construction. Because you all are talking about what can people do? How can people maneuver? Right? So art and research, just from your experience, what does that feel like? Because you are engaging in that conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We are running out of time. I think that's a
Cool.
great spot to finish, right? And because seriously, because we're looking at writing community and different ways that writing can happen. So I think that's all perfect. So many thanks. Thanks, Roberta. It's lovely to see you. Mwah.
Lovely.
We wish
Thank you
you
so
join us
much.
for supper.
Thank you.
Bye.